The boardroom was humming with quiet conversation when my phone lit up. Ryder calling. I stepped into the hallway, half expecting the usual. How's Portland? Miss you already. But what I heard instead made my skin go cold. I'm leaving you, Ryder said, his voice flat. And I've already sold the house. You'll need to figure out where to go next. I stared at the screen like it might start laughing. The confidence in his tone wasn't just cold, it was rehearsed, planned. A man who thought he had already won. I kept my voice neutral. You sold our house? He chuckled, like it was cute that I didn't understand. It's done, Danielle. Market's hot. Had to move quick. Janelle and I need something bigger anyway. Janelle. The name landed like a punch I'd seen coming, but still didn't brace for. I'd suspected for a while. Of course. Ryder's sudden need for late-night workouts, the lipstick once found on his hoodie that wasn't mine, and the new cologne he claimed came free with a car wash. But still, hearing her name spoken so casually like he was discussing, takeout sparked a quiet flame inside me. Sounds like you've been busy, I said coolly. He didn't even try to mask the arrogance. We're starting fresh, Danny. This is better for both of us. You'll figure something out. You always do. He hung up before I could answer. I stood in that echoey hallway, fingers clenched around my phone, pulse thudding behind my eyes. What Ryder didn't know, what he had never cared enough to notice, was that I already had figured something out. Months ago, after refinancing the mortgage, I'd taken the advice of our broker and moved the deed into my name only. It had seemed like a formality at the time. Ryder never questioned paperwork, never read fine print. He trusted charm and shortcuts. I trusted details. And now, his carelessness was going to be the end of him. The rest of the day blurred. I sat through a lunch pitch for a startup I couldn't remember the name of, nodded through questions I barely heard, and smiled when expected. But inside, I was building something. Brick by brick. By the time I got back to my hotel that evening, I wasn't heartbroken. I was sharp, focused. I poured a glass of tap water and sat at the desk, dialing the number I knew by heart. Ray, it's Danielle. I need to talk to you about something important. Ray Hartman had been my attorney and friend since college. A powerhouse in a pencil skirt with a voice that could silence a courtroom. What's going on? She asked. I gave her the highlights Ryder's declaration, the house sale, and the kicker. Wait, she said. He sold your house without your consent? Or so he thinks, I replied. But the deed's in my name. Has been since January. There was a pause. Then, a slow, satisfied exhale. Oh, Danielle, he's about to learn what a bad day really looks like. She laid out our plan step by step. Notify the buyer that the sale was invalid. Send Ryder a formal notice of ownership. Prepare to drag this man through every inch of legal mud he'd so casually stepped in. I hung up, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Power. Ryder thought he was the chess master. But the board? The board was mine. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was anxious, but because I was organizing, strategizing. While Ryder and his new girlfriend were probably sipping Chardonnay and scrolling Zillow, I was turning over every detail of our finances, timeline, and paper trail. By sunrise, I'd gathered everything. The refinance paperwork, the deed transfer, the emails confirming my sole ownership. I'd even dug out the notarized copy with both our signatures, his scrawl so casual you could practically hear the shrug. He'd signed it all without question. He always did, because Ryder never believed I'd do anything with it. But this time I had. Ray called me first thing, her voice sharp and alert. Already contacted the buyer's attorney, she said. They're stunned. Apparently Ryder told them it was a done deal. You're not going to believe this, he even pocketed the deposit already. I laughed, humorless. Did he now? Oh yes. Signed a contract, took the money, and acted like it was his name on the title, which makes this not just illegal but really stupid. Do we have enough for a fraud case? I asked. Technically, yes. But let's play this smart. We'll start by voiding the sale and letting the buyer put pressure on him. People don't like being conned out of five-figure deposits. Then we hit Ryder with a formal cease and desist. And if he keeps pushing, we escalate. The word escalate sat on my tongue like champagne. Ryder always counted on me backing down. He'd weaponized my patience for years using my silence as permission, but I wasn't silent anymore. By noon, Ray had emailed Ryder the first formal letter. It spelled everything out with crisp, brutal clarity. The house was never his to sell. The deed had been legally transferred to Danielle Rivers months ago. Any attempts to proceed would result in immediate legal consequences. I waited. An hour passed. 2. I imagined him reading the email at some trendy little cafe with Janelle across from him, her legs tucked under the table and his phone buzzing with Ray's letter like a curse. When he finally called, it was nearly 5 p.m. "You think this changes anything?" He snapped, no greeting. "That place was ours, Danielle. You can't just rewrite history." "No," I said, "but I can remind you who actually owns it." "You're unbelievable," he hissed. "You're seriously going to ruin this just to prove a point?" "No, Ryder," I said, my voice even. "You ruined it the moment you decided to sell my house and fund your next love story with stolen money." The line went quiet. For the first time, I heard something that sounded suspiciously like fear. "You don't want to do this," he said, softer now. "We don't need to fight." I smiled, even though he couldn't see me. "That's funny. You didn't say that yesterday." After we hung up, I forwarded the call log to Ray. She responded with a single sentence. "He just confessed to everything. Let him keep talking." I returned to Oregon the next morning. The drive from the airport to my house was surreal. The fall leaves were starting to turn, casting a gold glow over the streets, and everything looked painfully ordinary. But nothing about this week was ordinary. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Ryder's car still parked out front. Typical. He thought that if he showed up and acted entitled enough, everything would go his way. But not this time. Not ever again. I walked through the front door like I owned the place because I did. The air inside the house was stale, like something had been stewing for days. Ryder's sneakers were by the door, his hoodie tossed across the back of the chair like a territorial marker. There was a half-empty protein shake on the counter and the faint scent of his awful body spray hanging in the air. But the moment I stepped over the threshold, the house felt different. The power balance had shifted. I set down my suitcase and took a long look around. The walls I had painted, the kitchen I had designed, the dining table I had picked out on a solo trip to Seattle. This wasn't just real estate. This was mine. Every inch. I heard the door slam a moment later, and Ryder stormed into the room, waving his phone like it was a weapon. "What the hell is this, Danielle?" He shoved it in my face. "Ray's letter. You've got some nerve pretending this place is yours. You seriously think you can just pull this crap behind my back?" I didn't flinch. "It's not pretending. It is mine. You signed the deed transfer yourself back in January, remember? Lower interest rate, simpler paperwork, you said. You were too busy flirting with your broker to bother reading it." He blinked, just for a second, but that blink gave him away. "You tricked me," he muttered. "No," I said calmly. "You underestimated me." His voice rose. "You can't do this. I've already made commitments. I have people counting on me, Janelle and I." I raised a hand. "Stop. I don't care what you promised her. You made that bed. Now lie in it, somewhere else." "You don't understand how this works," he snapped. "This is a joint asset. You can't just lock me out." "But I can," I cut in. "And I will. I gave you courtesy. I gave you time. But Ryder, you gave me a gift. The moment you showed your true colors, you made this easy." His jaw clenched. I watched his bravado melt, piece by piece. He started pacing, yanking at his hair, muttering about calling his own lawyer. I let him spiral. "Do what you have to do," I said, folding my arms. But the buyer knows the sale was fake. The money's already being clawed back. You're lucky they're not pressing charges. Yet. He stopped pacing. You wouldn't. I stepped closer. Try me. For the next few days, he stayed in the guest room, sulking like a teenager grounded for the weekend. He sent passive-aggressive texts, slammed doors, left his dishes in the sink like that was supposed to bother me. It didn't. I'd already won. He just hadn't caught up to the score yet. When Ray called on Thursday, she was blunt. The buyer's out. They're furious, but cooperative. We're prepping the divorce papers now. You're in the strongest position possible. What about criminal charges? I asked. They're holding off for now, but Ryder's walking a thin line. Keep documenting everything. So I did. I logged every message, every tantrum, every snide remark. I even recorded a voicemail he left at 2 a.m. where he called me a manipulative snake and the kind of woman who ruins lives. That part made me laugh, because for the first time in years, I wasn't the one being ruined. Saturday morning started deceptively quiet. The sky over Eugene was gray, and the drizzle outside made the windows sweat. I just brewed a cup of coffee when I heard the knock at the door, 3 sharp raps, too confident to be friendly. I opened it slowly, and there they were. Ryder stood with his arms crossed, face set in a mock casual expression. Next to him, clinging to his elbow like a handbag, was Janelle. Blonde, glossy, 20-something, and looking around my entryway like she was appraising a boutique Airbnb. So this is the place, she said breezily. Ryder said it was quaint. I love the built-ins. I didn't say a word. Just stepped aside, arms folded. Ryder walked in like he still had a claim to anything under this roof. Janelle followed, her heels clicking against the hardwood. Where's the bedroom? She asked, already peeking down the hallway. I finally spoke. There's only one room you two need to be in, and that's the one with the front door. Janelle froze, her purse clutched tighter. Ryder shot me a look. Don't do this. I'm not doing anything, I said. You brought her here. You tried to sell my house. And now you're both going to listen to the facts. Ryder's voice dropped. Danielle, this is unnecessary. We're just here to pick up a few things. Liar, I said calmly. You told her this place was yours, that you sold it, that she was moving in. Isn't that right, Janelle? Janelle's eyes darted between us. Wait, what? I turned to her fully. Did Ryder tell you this house was his to sell? She hesitated, then nodded slowly. He said he was finalizing the sale, that he had full rights. I walked to the kitchen counter, grabbed the folder I'd placed there the night before, and held it out. This is the deed. My name. My signature. No one else's. He transferred ownership to me months ago. Legally. Knowingly. Silently. Ryder's voice cracked. That's not how it happened. Oh, please, I said, turning back to Janelle. He didn't tell you he signed away his rights? That he took a buyer's money and lied? That he's one step away from facing fraud charges? Janelle stepped back like the floor had shifted beneath her. Fraud? Textbook, I said. She looked at Ryder, her voice rising. Is this true? Ryder, did you lie to me? He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Just a stunned, breathless stutter. Oh my God, Janelle whispered. You told me everything was settled. You said the deposit was safe, that we'd be moving in next week. I told my parents. I can explain. Ryder reached for her, but she yanked her arm back like he was contagious. Number, you can't. You dragged me into this nightmare, and now you expect me to just sit here while your wife. Ex-wife, he interjected weakly. Not yet, I said, crossing my arms. But soon. Janelle turned and stormed toward the door. I am not getting pulled into your disaster of a life. She slammed the door behind her, leaving Ryder standing there like a man stripped of everything but his ego. You're loving this, aren't you? He spat. You think this makes you strong? No, I said, walking over to the table. I placed the divorce folder down like a chess piece. This makes me free. He stared at the paperwork, his face pale. You have until Monday to sign, I said, and until tonight to get your things out. You're throwing away 6 years, he whispered. No, I said, steady. You did that the moment you called me from a phone I paid for, in a hotel I booked, and told me I was being left for a girl who thinks quaint is a compliment. He didn't say another word, just turned away slowly, gathering whatever pride he had left. And me? I poured another cup of coffee. Ryder didn't leave that night. He sulked in the guest room, the door shut tight, muffled swearing leaking out every few hours. I ignored him, let him stew. I spent the evening in the living room, curled on the couch with a throw blanket, sipping tea and scrolling through property listings, not because I needed to move, but because I could if I wanted to. At midnight, I heard a knock on my door. Not loud, not angry, just tentative. What? I said without looking up. Ryder opened the door slowly. He looked like a shadow of himself, shirt wrinkled, hair messy, that confident smirk replaced with the kind of expression you only wear when the truth finally sticks. I'm sorry, he said. I looked at him. Really looked. And for a brief moment, I saw the man I used to love. The man who once brought me sunflowers after a tough week, who used to hum in the kitchen on Sunday mornings, who promised forever without crossing his fingers. But that man was a ghost. You're sorry now, I said, setting my mug down. After selling my house, lying to your girlfriend, stealing a deposit, and trying to erase me from my own life? He sighed and dropped onto the armrest across from me. I screwed up. I know that. I didn't think it would go this far. That's the problem, Ryder. You never think past the moment you're in. He looked at me, something raw flickering behind his eyes. I panicked. I felt trapped. You were always so in control. I didn't know how to keep up. I almost laughed. So your solution was to burn it all down? He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the divorce papers. I'll sign, he said, but can we not make it ugly? It's already ugly, I said, but it'll be clean. Quick. You'll get your split of the savings. That's more than you deserve after the stunt you pulled. He hesitated. And the fraud thing? I stood and walked over to him, meeting his eyes head on. The buyer agreed not to pursue charges for now. But I swear to God, Ryder, if you touch one more dollar that isn't yours, if you so much as email that buyer again, I will let Ray take the gloves off. He looked away, ashamed or maybe just caught. I'll be out by tomorrow, he mumbled. Tonight, I said. His head jerked up. Seriously? I gave you time. You used it to bring your mistress into my living room and insult my intelligence. You don't get to crash here anymore. He stood slowly, picked up the folder, and shuffled down the hallway without another word. I watched the door to the guest room close, then locked mine for the first time since we'd lived together. The next morning he was gone. His sneakers, hoodie, shake bottle, everything. Even the hideous abstract painting he insisted on hanging above the fireplace. I laughed when I saw the blank space it left behind. Later that afternoon, Ray called. Officially filed, she said. He signed. We're moving forward. Good, I said, closing the blinds. Let's finish this. You're stronger than you know, Danielle. I know exactly how strong I am, I said. Because I had to be. I hung up, grabbed my keys, and headed out for a walk. Not to clear my head, but to feel the world again. The air was cool and sharp, and every step felt like I was walking farther away from the version of me that had tolerated less than she deserved. Ryder had tried everything: gaslighting, arrogance, even pity, but none of it worked. Because the final move? That was always mine to make. The first morning without Ryder felt strange in a sad way, but like when you finally take off a tight pair of shoes you didn't realize had been hurting you all day. The house was still. No slamming drawers, no toxic tension thickening the air, no footsteps pacing behind closed doors. Just me, a quiet breeze drifting through the kitchen window, and the soft sound of rain tapping against the glass. I stood in the living room for a long moment, just looking. The emptiness left behind by his clutter wasn't lonely, it was liberating. The framed college football jersey was gone. The gaudy leather gaming chair he insisted was ergonomic had disappeared. Even the hideous lava lamp he thought was ironic had been taken, leaving behind a space that finally looked like it belonged to me. I opened the windows, lit my eucalyptus candle, turned on a jazz playlist. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I danced just a little. Later that day, Lauren came over, her arms full of coffee, paint swatches, and what looked like a bottle of Malbec. "So," she said, eyeing the empty walls, "when does the exorcism start?" I laughed. "Already in progress." We spent the afternoon rearranging furniture, dragging the couch 3 inches this way and that, and choosing new artwork for the walls. Every shift, every decision, felt like stitching something back together me. "How's he taking it?" Lauren asked, sipping her wine. I smirked. "He signed the divorce papers yesterday. Ray's handling the rest. I gave him a deadline and, for once in his life, he met it." She raised her glass. "To evictions and fresh paint." We clinked. That night, I pulled out a storage bin from the back of the closetone I hadn't touched in years. Inside were old sketchbooks, watercolors, and brushes from another life, back when I thought I'd be an illustrator instead of a marketing director pushing product launches and click-through rates. I flipped through the pages and found one I remembered drawing in my 20s, a watercolor of a woman standing at a window, sunlight washing over her face. The caption underneath, written in pencil, read, "Someday I'll be her." I smiled. Not bitterly, not sadly, just knowingly. The next morning, I framed it and hung it where Ryder's dumb fantasy football trophy used to sit. Ray called me later in the week with updates. He hasn't contested anything. No games, no surprises. Looks like he's finally realized he's out of rope. "And the buyer?" I asked. "They've moved on. Found another property. Still furious, but they're not pressing charges. For now, you're in the clear." I felt a tightness in my chest loosen. "Thank you." "You're doing great, Danielle. Better than most." "I'm doing better than I expected," I admitted, "but not better than I deserve." After we hung up, I walked around the house slowly, noticing things I hadn't before: the way the light hit the floor around 4 p.m., the scent of the rosemary plant I'd nearly let die in the chaos, the tiny scuff marks on the floor from all the pacing Ryder used to do when he was pretending to think. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the next shoe to drop. There were no more shoes, just space, just peace, and me, finally ready to fill both with exactly what I wanted. A month later, the house looked completely different, not in some dramatic HGTV way, but in all the ways that mattered. The energy had changed. The silence no longer felt like a void. It felt like choice. My space was finally mine. The dining table no longer served as Ryder's clutter hub for unopened bills and gym supplements. Now it held a bowl of fresh fruit, a stack of books I actually planned to read, and a single candle that made the whole place smell like cedar and sage. I'd rearranged the living room, put up new curtains, replaced the rug we argued about for 3 years with one I found at a local vintage shop. But more importantly, I'd started letting myself breathe again, letting myself be again. One Saturday, while reorganizing a drawer in the hallway, I found an old photo tucked in the back. Ryder and me, in our second year together. We were smiling, arm in arm, grinning at something just out of frame. He looked cocky. I looked in love. For a second, I froze. I didn't feel angry or sad, just grateful that the woman in that photo wasn't me anymore. She was soft, hopeful, willing to believe charm could replace character. But she hadn't known better. I do now. I slipped the photo into an envelope and placed it in a box labeled Past. It didn't deserve to be on display, but it didn't need to be destroyed either. Some things are better stored, not erased. The divorce finalized the following Tuesday. Ray texted me a simple screenshot of the court confirmation. Case closed. I stared at it for a full minute before responding, "Thank you for everything." She replied, "You did the hard part. You walked away." Lauren insisted we celebrate, and I didn't argue. We grabbed dinner at a rooftop spot in Bend, the kind of place with string lights, cold cocktails, and music that made you feel like something new was starting. "You're glowing," she said as we clinked glasses. "I'm unburdened," I replied, grinning. "Turns out that makes a big difference." She leaned in. "So, any chance you'll start dating again?" I laughed, but it wasn't a bitter laugh. It was full, real. "Eventually, but right now I'm dating myself." Back home that night, I curled up on the couch with a mug of tea and no one else's noise, no one else's mess, just my home, my rules, my peace. Ryder had tried to dismantle everything: my stability, my dignity, even my roof. But he failed. Not because I fought harder, but because I stopped letting him set the rules. He thought the end of our marriage would be my undoing. Instead, it was my beginning. I wake up differently now. Not with dread, not with anxiety, but with intent. I stretch, I journal. I play music in the kitchen while I cook breakfast for Anna and it feels like a celebration. I've learned that healing isn't loud. It's not a dramatic makeover or a Facebook status. It's a quiet evening alone without loneliness. It's eating at the table without tension. It's standing in your home and knowing that every inch of it reflects who you are and not who you had to become to keep someone else happy. I used to think strength meant putting up with things. Now I know it means walking away from what hurts and rebuilding with both hands. Ryder's exit didn't break me. It revealed me. And this version of me? She's never giving herself away again.